Okay, students, we're going to go ahead and talk about factoring trinomials with leading coefficient of 1, and then I'll go on to leading coefficients greater than 1. All right, so first thing we have to is define some words here again, or remind you, because you should already know these from studying earlier in the chapter here. Trinomial. Tri means 3. Nomial is a polynomial, meaning one or more terms. Okay, so in this case, we're going to have 3 terms. Okay, leading coefficient. Well, in order to be a leading coefficient, we have to put it in standard form. Ax squared plus bx plus c is the standard form of a quadratic. Okay, so if it's not given to you in standard form, you need to rearrange it. Now, what makes it a quadratic? Quadratic means the highest degree of any of the terms here is 2. So that term, remember terms are separated by plus or minus signs, that term has degree 2. So that's called the quadratic term. Okay, you need to know this vocabulary because on the DCAS, they might just ask you name the coefficient in the quadratic term or the linear term. Degree 1 is a linear term. So we're just reviewing some vocab first. That's called the linear term. And of course, I will be asking this for extra credit in class too. In degree 0, because I could put x to the 0 there, which is why it's degree 0, is called the constant term. Remember, anything to the 0 power besides 0 to 0 is 1. So x to the 0 equals 1. 1,000 to the 0 equals 1. Negative 2 to the 0. Well, let's put it this way. I have a parenthesis on that. Equals 1. Okay? 0 to 0, undefined. That's the only one that's undefined. Okay? Everything else is 1. All right. So the leading coefficient comes from the leading term. The leading term means the one out front. That's leading, which is the highest degree term. Or a polynomial has a variable in it, such as x, and all these exponents up here, if they're written in the numerator as these are here, have to be greater than or equal to 0. And that word is non-negative. Okay, another way of saying greater than or equal to 0 is non-negative. Okay, so there's some basic vocabulary right there. Okay, make sure you have all that down, memorize that, because I will constantly be asking that. So the leading coefficient is A. Remember, coefficient, next vocab word, is a number in front of a variable. So the variable x, that's that coefficient. The linear coefficient is b, and c is called the constant. Beginners often want to add the x in there. Coefficients are only numbers. Write it down. Only numbers. So a coefficient would be one number. Coefficients would be plural, but they're only numbers. You cannot have an x with it ever for a coefficient. Those are the name of terms. Standard form means highest degree down. In this case, 2, 1, 0. Okay. So now, we had multiplied binomials together before. Let's say I have this right here. Okay. We've already done that earlier. Okay. And that helps to understand where we're going. This is called factored form right there. Okay. So if I have f of x, function notation, that right there is called factored form. Okay, depending on where you've hit quadratics, you might have already done this. If you've done a quadratics chapter, if not, you're now learning it now. When I have parentheses and like a binomial and a binomial or factored, these are called, each one of these is a factor. And factored forms are always multiplied together. Always multiplied together. Okay, you can't have something plus at the end. Okay, it's got to be multiplied together. All right, so when we multiplied this, we drew arrows. Okay, x times x gives me x squared. Okay, that's the first term. That's going to be the highest degree. Some of you, I told you, you need to put ones on there. Remember, we expect you to know that's a 1. And so when I do x times x, they're the same. These are called bases, another vocab. When I'm multiplying like bases, so both those bases are x, I add the exponents. So I have to know it's 1 and 1, and I get 2. Okay, so x times x, x squared. Okay, x times negative 3 is negative 3x. 2 times x is 2x. And 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Okay. Now, so when I multiply two binomials together, like this, I'm going to end up with 4 terms. So I have 4 arrows. Notice I have 4 terms here. You cannot jump to the answer. You're beginners. Okay. Geometry Algebra 2. The teacher might let you do it off the top of your head and pop off the answer for extra credit real quick. Okay. So then next, I need to combine like terms. So I have x squared minus 1x minus 6. Notice this is a quadratic because it's degree 2 in standard form. So that's what we just talked about. So what we're doing in factoring, we're going to be starting with this quadratic equation given to us, or a quadratic expression in this case. If I had equals f of x, now it's a quadratic equation. Remember, an equation has equal sign in it. So you could be given an expression or an equation, okay? So in this case, an expression, no equal sign. And we're going to go from here back to that answer. There's the answer. So you've already practiced multiplying binomials to come up with this trinomial. Almost every time you multiply two binomials, you're going to end up with a trinomial. There's only one special case where it's the difference of squares that it wipes out the middle term and you just have a first and a last term, a quadratic term and a constant term. The linear term is wiped out. So that's what we're trying to do, is go from given a quadratic like this to go backwards to get this answer. Okay, so it's reverse direction. That's why we started. Most people have no problem multiplying, going through. Now it's going backwards. Okay, so now let's try some. And notice I put these two smiley faces here. Okay, key thing to know, this first term times this first term, whatever's in those two first terms of each of the binomials, has to multiply to the first term in your answer right here. The two last terms, or second terms of each binomial, 2 times negative 3, will always multiply to the last one. And the other two, which are my two smiley faces right here, they will add to the middle term, the linear term. So if you want, you could say negative 3x, say negative 3x there, and a 2x right there, and 2x, that's what I have there. And I see 2x minus 3x is that negative 1x right here. Okay, I'll change the color to green. Okay, so when I put these together and add them together, I'm going to always get that middle term. Okay, and I multiply these two last ones together. It's always going to give me the constant term at the end. Okay, so this is key to know where these come from. First term times first term gives me my first term. Now notice these two binomials are written in standard form, meaning x first and then the constant, degree 1 and then degree 0. Make sure you do that first. They might give it to you in reverse order. So let's say they gave me 2 is x plus 2 times negative 3 plus x. I'm going to go ahead from commutative property of addition and switch those two. So I'm going to do x plus 2 times x minus 3. Notice the signs are the same. The x is a positive 1. Here it's still positive 1. It's negative 3 there. It's negative 3 here. Remember, minus and negative mean the same thing. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and multiply it out. And then you'll have it with your like terms in the middle, like we have here, to combine them to get down to a single linear term. So if you need to, rearrange them if they don't give it to you in standard form already. Okay, most of the time they're given to you in standard form, but just in case they don't. Okay, so let's take an example. We're going to factor. Like I said, right now we're going to just deal with factoring with leading LC, stands for leading coefficient of 1. Okay, then the next video I'll do leading coefficient of 2 and higher. Okay, we're going to make an individual video of each one here. Okay, so let's say I have x squared, it says factor, that's the directions. Factor x squared minus 2x minus 8. Okay, standard form, right? It's a quadratic, degree 2, 3 terms, so that's a trinomial. Practice your vocabulary as you're saying this. Leading coefficient of 1 or the quadratic coefficient 1. The linear terms coefficient is negative 2 and the constants term is, or the constant itself is negative 8. Okay, so just know that. So the first thing I'm going to write down is it multiplies to AC. How do I get rid of this? Okay. Multiplies to AC. Remember our standard form is AX squared plus BX plus C. So A times C. The quadratic coefficient times the constant. I got to do that. So if you need to, you write down right in front of it A, B, and C. Your beginners, this might help. So I'm doing A times C. A times C is 1 times negative 8 is negative 8. And it's going to add to B. B I already have right there, negative 2. So I need the two factors. So first off, just so it's going to multiply to negative 8. One answer, one number has to be positive, and one has to be negative. Okay, and they're going to add to negative 2. So what multiplies to 8? 1 and 8 or 2 and 4? Okay, so I have to ask myself, which one of these can subtract, because one's a plus and one's a minus, so it's like subtraction, to negative 2. So it's 4 minus 2. Does that equal negative 2? Or is it 2 minus 4 equals negative 2? Well, it's 2 minus 4. So I put the negative there. So the 4 is negative. The 2 is positive. Those are my two factors. Okay, so now I put my two binomials. Remember, the first term times the first term has to give me 1x squared. Well, the only thing that multiplies to x squared is x times x. So with these leading coefficients of 1, it's very easy. I can just plug in the x there. Then I go ahead, and if you want to get used to it, because this is what you're going to do in the higher level ones when it's 2 and higher, draw these two smiley faces. One of them has to multiply to negative 4 and the other's to positive 2. So it doesn't matter. I can put plus 2 there and a minus 4 there, or I could have switched it and put minus 4 first and negative 2 or positive 2 second. But notice here, there's my negative 4x and there's my 2x. Okay, 2x minus 4x is negative 2x. There's my middle term right there. So I can see that right there visually. And of course, then 2 times negative 4 is my negative 8 right there. So I can guarantee I have it right because I've done x times x is x squared. There's my 2x minus 4x gives me a negative 2x, and 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. Okay, there's the factored expression. Remember, it's an expression because there's no equal sign. Okay, let's do one more little higher level, let's say x squared minus 3x minus 54. So one of the major things with factoring is you have to be good with your integers. Otherwise, you'd have to use a times table to help you out. So again, I write down multiplies to AC. Again, if you want to put in underneath it A, B, and C, so you have that right there for visual. A times C is negative 54. By the way, a common error that beginners make is they forget the negative sign right there, and they write 54, and that blows your whole answer because then you're looking for wrong numbers. Make sure you're paying attention to the signs. Adds to B every time. B we see right there is negative 3. So my times tables that multiply to 54, 9 and 6. Well, there's a difference of 3. Remember, one's plus and one's minus. So is 6 minus 9 negative 3? Yes, it is. 6 minus 9. Okay. Again, my first term here times this first term has to multiply to x, 1x squared. The only thing that is x and x. That's 1x squared. I can draw the two smiling faces. Okay, 1 times what gives me 6? 6. 1 here times what gives me negative 9? Negative 9. Okay, and I can check it if I wanted to. There's my 6x. There's my negative 9x. 6x minus 9x is negative 3x. And then 6 times negative 9 is my negative 54. So I've actually gone back through and checked that I have it right. So I can guarantee that I have it right. I usually don't make people draw these smiley faces, okay, because on this one it's just very easy, just taking these two factors and plugging them in. But this is going to become key when you do it with level of 2 and higher, just so you know. Okay, is there anything else I need to point out? Okay, let's do one more type now. If we're going to solve, okay, so if I have x squared plus 12x plus 27 equals 0. Now I want to solve it. Solving goes one step further than what we just did. Okay, so again, multiplies to AC. Again, if you need to write down A, B, and C, go ahead and do that. So you make sure you multiply correctly. 1 times 27 is 27, and it adds to B every time. B we see right there is 12. Remember, it's got to be written in standard form first, highest degree down. Okay, now notice it multiplies to positive 27. So either both answers are positive or both are negative. To know which one it is, I look at the sign of the B. Since that's plus, then both of them have to be plus. Okay, there's going to be two numbers that add to 12. My times tables, 9 and 3. 9 times 3 is 27, and 9 and 3 add to 12. So there they are right there. Okay, so again, x and x, because that multiplies to x squared. First term times first term equals this first term. I could draw my two smiley faces, and I have a plus 9 and a plus 3, and now it's equaling to 0. So it's one step further now. Now I have my two factors. Remember, these are called factors. That's one factor. That's another factor. Remember, a factor means two things that multiply back up to the original. So we just checked it before. Remember, I can put the 9x there and the 3x there, and 9x plus 3x is my 12x, and the 9 times 3 is the 27. So I've already done x times x to get my x squared. So I just checked it. Those two binomials multiply back up to the original. So those are called factors. Remember, if we had factors of 12, that'd be 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. All those are factors of 12 because they will all divide into 12 evenly or multiplied together by two of those to get 12. A combination there will multiply to 12. Okay, those are factors of just a number. You've done that since elementary school. Okay, these are now binomial factors or polynomial factors that multiply back up to there. So again, one step further, that's the factoring part. Now we use what's called the zero product property. Okay, zero product property says one of those two factors has to be 0. Because if this is 0, it doesn't matter what this one is. If this factor is 0, 0 times anything is 0. So I said x plus 9 equal to 0. Subtract the 9 across, and x equals negative 9. There's one answer. Or this one is 0, and it doesn't matter what the other is. So I have x plus 3 equals 0. Subtract the 3 across, and I get x equals negative 3. Okay, that means if I plug negative 9 into there, notice I'd have negative 9 plus 9 is 0. 0 times, I plug negative 9 in there, it's 0 times negative 6 is 0. Or if I plug negative 3 in, okay, if I plug negative 3 there and negative 3 there, then this one makes it 0 over there. Times 6 is 0. Okay, that's called the zero product property. So when it's asking for solving solutions, it's got to have an equal sign in it. Can't solve it if there's no equal sign. You're always setting it equal to 0 first. So if one of these, like if the linear term was on the right side, I have to move it over to the left by doing the opposite operation and put it in standard form. Okay, and then I set each factor equal to 0, as I just did right here. This is setting each factor equal to 0, doing that right there, and then solving it, as I show you right there with the steps. Okay, so that is the day 1 of factoring right there with with the leading coefficient of 1. Like I said, if you want to draw your 2 smiley faces to help you get used to, that's these 2 smiley faces right here, to get used to checking, okay? Because you're going to do that when it gets to higher level. This is easy enough that you don't have to do it, but when you get to when the leading coefficient is 2 and higher, that's when it's going to come into play, okay? All right, that does it for this lesson.